in almost every case, you've got broken bones, you've got herniated discs, you've got surgeries. The medical expenses can really rack up.
Are you sure you know what to do if you're injured by someone else while riding your motorcycle? Well, we're going to find out today, because that's what we're going to ask the lawyer. Hi again, everybody. I'm Rob Rosenthal with AskTheLawyers.com, and my guest is Kentucky attorney Tad Thomas. Tad, good to see you again. Thank you for joining us as usual.
You too, Rob. Thanks.
So it seems to me, and maybe I'm wrong, but that oftentimes when a motorcyclist is involved in an accident with a car, and it seems like people just automatically assume the motorcycle is at fault, or that they seem to get the short end of the stick. Has that been your experience?
It actually hasn't. I'm a driver as well, so I've seen motorcyclists speeding down the highway for sure. But the cases that I'm getting in, sadly, are really the result of inattention from other drivers. And so when you have a motorcyclist who's not seen by an inattentive driver, the damages are so much more for those motorcyclists. And so largely it's a product of inattention from other drivers as opposed to an issue with the motorcyclist.
So are you finding that fault is pretty cut and dry in these cases?
Yes, in a lot of them, it really is. And, sometimes there can be fault on the part of the motorcyclist as well. And depending on your state, that may make a difference or it may not. But largely fault is pretty clear, and it's a result of inattention from other drivers, other drivers coming into their lanes, pulling out in front of them, things like that.
And like you said, when it's motorcycle versus automobile, the automobile almost always wins that.
It does. The damages and the injuries in these can be very, very severe, regardless of whether or not the motorcyclist is wearing a helmet. In almost every case, you've got broken bones, you've got herniated discs, you've got surgeries. The medical expenses can really rack up. And insurance policies typically have different provisions when it comes to motorcyclists, too.
You mentioned fault. It varies from state to state. What are the rules in Kentucky, and how does that affect these cases?
Sure. In Kentucky, like a lot of states, we're what we call pure comparative fault. So the jury will get to assign percentages of fault to the various parties. So if, for instance, if a motorcyclist was speeding, but the other vehicle pulled out in front of them, and there's fault on both parties, the jury can decide what percentage of fault each party is, adding up to 100%. And the effect of that is, let's say the jury awarded $100 in damages. If they felt that the motorcyclist was 50% at fault, they would lose half of the money that the jury would have awarded. Other states, like Georgia, for instance, I believe, other states have what we call pure contributory fault. And so if the motorcyclist has any fault at all, they would get nothing. Alabama is one of those states, for instance.
But in Kentucky, so if a rider is injured in a collision and they think, well, maybe I had something to do with it, it's still worth their while to contact someone like yourself for their case.
Absolutely. Because the jury would get to give a percentage of fault for each one of those parties.
You mentioned the helmet. Is there a helmet law in Kentucky?
There is. And, there's a helmet law. I think it's up to a year, and then you can ride without a helmet after a year. But, the jury is going to hold you responsible. If you're riding without a helmet and you sustain a head injury, the jury will take that into account. It's similar to a seatbelt.
So even if the rider were not at fault, the jury still considers that?
Right, because the jury can say, okay, well, you didn't prevent the accident or the injury, the collision was not your fault, but the injuries partially are because you didn't wear a helmet. And so the jury has the right to take that into consideration.
So even if they're outside, let's say they're not wearing the helmet, you said after a year and they're not wearing their helmet, that still can be considered by the jury?
Absolutely.
I got you.
Yeah.
Tad, what if somebody goes, well, I can probably handle this on my own, just deal with the insurance companies. I don't need a personal injury lawyer like yourself to help me with my case. What would you say to that?
It's the statistics are pretty clear that clients that don't have lawyers that pursue injury claims get less on average than those that have attorneys that are representing them. And it's also important to have an attorney who can navigate the insurance issues associated with motorcycle collisions. For instance, in Kentucky, we have PIP benefits or medical bills payments up to $10,000. Most motorcycle policies, unbeknownst to the policyholder, they waive those. And so it's not like a car wreck case where you automatically get some of those medical bills paid. So you need to have an attorney to navigate. There's $10,000 there that you may have waived, but may not have done so the right way. So that should still be out there. But it's important to have an attorney who can describe that for you, work through that, talk to the insurance companies, and hopefully get you that increased money.
And even $10,000 generally not going to go very far, especially with the severity of injuries that happen in motorcycle accidents.
Right. But attorneys also know some of the tricks, though, as to how to prioritize which insurance pays and to help you maximize those benefits.
Awesome. Great information as usual, Chad. Thank you so much for taking some time and answering our questions.
Thanks for having me, Rob.
There we go. Lots of helpful info, and that's going to do it for this episode of Ask the Lawyer. My guest has been Kentucky attorney Tad Thomas. Remember, if you want to be able to get the best information or make sure you can choose a lawyer that lawyers choose, head over to askthelawyer.com first. And also take a sec to subscribe by hitting the button below. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm Rob Rosenthal with Ask the Lawyers.